Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Expana's Morning Market Roundup. Today is Tuesday, August the 13th. Hope your day is going great so far. This morning, we are going to kick off with Josh Bickert, and Josh is going to speak to us a little bit about Norwegian salmon and the fact that we have had a slight price retreat, or maybe more than a slight price retreat, a little earlier than what might be considered typical. Good morning, Josh. Hope you're doing well.
Good morning, Russ. Yeah, doing great. Good morning, everybody. So we're here. I can't believe how fast summer's going. A lot of the country's back to school already. I know some people down in Florida started today. We still got a little bit of time here in New Jersey. I've spoken to it on these videos before. Summer doldrums, quiet time, grilling, meats. It doesn't bode well for salmon a lot of the time, but we're not without some storylines throughout the summer. We're actually going to kick off a little bit with something a little different than the Norwegian, just so we can kind of understand what's making that a little bit of a head scratcher for some in the marketplace. So taking a look here, we have the Fresh Farm Salmon Index. This is just basically an amalgamation of everything. We kind of have a formula. We lump in fillets and whole fish and just kind of get a pulse of the market, see how things are doing. Overall, not too bad. We're a little above that 5-year average, but a little bit below some of the more recent years that we've had. It's been a little quieter. There's been a little bit more supply. At the start of the summer, a lot of the supply that we saw was coming out of West Coast Canada. So when we real quick take a look at, say, an 8 to 10 pound whole fish out of West Coast Canada, you do see those prices dip deeply into the summer months, into June and July. And then slowly but surely, as some of those farms started to reduce harvests and then came offline, that price did climb very quickly. We are very close right now, while some quotations are completely removed due to lack of trade and availability on West Coast Canadian. We are close to just about all the sizing to be removed. But you can see that steep increase as that supply dwindles, and the West Coast market is looking for more fish. So then when we come over and take a look at Norwegian, that we're going to highlight here today a little bit, it's, like I said, a little bit of a head scratcher because we look at, almost we're not quite 52 week lows, but we're real close to it. We saw some, last year back in November when that supply really ramped up and increased there. Normally in August, we'll like I said, we'll see that decline. You can take a look here at the past 3 years. We've seen it, and it really finds its low watermark here, where the last couple years in September, everything kind of evens out. Like we said, back to school, holidays, vacations in Europe are over. A lot of people expected. You see these bumps here in other years, and a lot of that can be attributed to Europeans. They'll go out 2 weeks, 3 weeks to take a nice vacation, and it can disrupt harvest a little bit. If you have that many less workers, it is vacation time. Great summer months there. So you tend to see a little bit more. But if we take a real quick look here, so here's whole fish imports through June, coming into the summer months. And at the beginning of the year, things were tight. We had biological issues, a lot of winter wounds going on, so a lot more fillets possibly coming in. But you can see here the percentage change, year over year, month by month. We were down as we, went through May, and then all of a sudden June picked up, and we really increased, by 66% there in June. And while census data only comes up through June, a lot of market participants are talking about how it may be really interesting to see what those numbers, once they come out in the coming months for both July and August, to see how much they've picked up that can lead to, numbers like this. One of the other things market participants are interested in is, while you have this fall, previous years, are we going to see similar? And is it going to fall even further? Or is it going to just kind of hold a little bit better? So it'll be interesting to see what goes there. If we jump into a 5-year, another thing that kind of stood out to us, and we take a look at 2019, that's probably the closest to what we're seeing right now, is you can see that dip. So it's not, you got to go back a little bit pre-COVID, but it's not unheard of that we can fall, beyond the levels that we're seeing right now. We'll kind of see how that materializes, how it goes. Another really interesting point brought up by some of the market participants is speculation over the strength of the U.S. dollar over the Norwegian krone or kroner. So if we take a quick look at the exchange rates here and the strength of the US dollar and how appealing it is for them to sell into the United States, you can see we're at basically 10-year highs that we've seen in that exchange rate. So the US is an attractive place for the Norwegians and Europeans to bring their fish right now, and that exchange rate. So it can attribute, while we don't know how much, it could be a contributing factor to why those prices remain somewhat lower and why that volume is seems to be ticking up a little bit. One thing's for sure is never a dull moment here in the world of salmon. There's always something to talk about. So we'll keep our eyes peeled on everything and check back in again with you guys shortly.
And Josh, we will look forward to that time when you do check back in. I'm sure we'll get an update on the census data and all the nitty-gritty details on the salmon market. We always appreciate your insight. Thanks again for joining us. And ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to Junie, and Junie is going to be joining us on the Morning Market Roundup for her very first time. Junie, welcome aboard. I understand that you're going to be covering some data on the Australian beef export shipments lately.
Thank you, Russ. Today we'll zoom in onto Australia beef export data that has reached heat record highs in July at close to 130,000 metric tons, which has surpassed the record highs last seen in 2015 during the drought year for Australia. We will also take a quick look at what are the key drivers for this trend. Needless to say, due to the tight supply in the US, Australia has come to fill in the void. Exports to the US in July was the second highest in-month volume since 2015 at 38,000 metric tons. The yearly growth rate is a very impressive 61.2%. Japan is another key destination for Australia beef. Due to the lack of US imports, Japan has turned to Australia to service its domestic needs, especially with its tourism boom that has benefited from its weak currency. Year on year, exports grew close to 50% in July. China is a tricky sport for Australia to export its beef due to the increased competition from South American beef processors such as Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. Exports to China has not been back to pre-pandemic levels, but the July figures was boosted since the trade bans were lifted earlier this year, giving it an 11% year-on-year boost. Similar to Japan, Korea has also increased its dependence on Australia beef due to the lack of US supply. In fact, volumes hit an all-time high despite weak domestic consumption levels. The annual growth rate is almost 20%. Production-wise, let's take a quick look at New Zealand, which is a key player in the Down Under region. It is in the middle of its off-peak season. With less outputs produced, this definitely gave Australia a competitive edge when it comes to exports. For more information, feel free to check out our analysis pieces on Australia's July export figures and our first half review on Australia beef industry.
And thank you, Junie. You just said something that caught my attention, and that was the down under region. I don't think I realized that people actually referenced that part of the world as the down under region. I mean, we do casually, but that's actually a part of typical professional dialogue, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's great. And we really appreciate your insight, and we'll look forward to seeing you again for our next Australian beef export update. This has been Expana's Morning Market Roundup for Tuesday, August the 13th. We hope that you have a great day, and thank you, as always, for joining us.